Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 139 based on novel. So let's start. Coming out from the cave, Long Houchen couldn't help but sigh faintly. It was as if there was no daytime in this world of darkness and flames. The muddy atmosphere made him not dare to breathe directly. Erecting a holy mantle, he covered himself inside. The air was quite warm, and looking far away, one could discern some twisting light. Haoyue didn't seem to mind the vile environment. Slowly crawling out from the cave, his 5 large heads were lifted up together, looking ahead. Opening his mouth wide, he engulfed that muddy air, as if cultivating by absorbing the air coming from here like that. In flashes of light, his comrades were summoned beside Long Houchen. They immediately took formation. Long Houchen, Zhong Fangfang, and Yu and Wang Yuan were guarding the 4 sides, with Lin Xin inside and Caia directly vanishing gradually at Long Houchen's side. Haoyue, you can begin. There's no time to lose. The earlier they are done, the faster they will leave from this world. A dark blue-colored radiance floated out from Little Light's opened mouth. That was the demon god crown left by the demon god of clear vision Crocell, which simply floated in front of Little Light. A drizzling purple brilliance started to be liberated from Haoyue's body. This time, it was not merely his thin purple intent, but a substantial purple radiance. This purple radiance was only seen when Haoyue destroyed Andromalius demon god pillar before. 5 purple glints were shot at the same time from Haoyue's 5 heads to that demon god crown. Immediately, an exploding sound followed, and that demon god crown burst instantly, bursting out with a large expanse of dark blue fog. Little light, little flame, little green, little blue, and little purple absorbed this fog in the air like a whale, engulfing it thoroughly. In the meantime, an extremely imposing purple radiance burst out from him, as the already swollen immense bulge on his neck squirmed violently at once. Ra! Haoyue's 5 heads roared to the sky, and immediately, that dense purple radiance on him turned into an immense pillar of light shooting to the sky. The surrounding polluted air became like snow encountering boiling water, dissolving all around, making the surrounding line of sight clear. After that purple-colored pillar of light shot to the highest location, it started to shift rapidly, tracing circles in the air, and forming a purple hexagram. Immediately, the thick purple pillar abruptly divided into 5 parts, equally poured into every angle of the hexagram. Haoyue's bulge split open, and a brand new large head came out, blossoming along with a purple pillar immediately after coming out, the latter shooting at the last one of the 6 angles on the hexagon. Never before did such an odd scene occur in Haoyue's previous transformation. The purple hexagon, having its 6 angles filled with purple light, immediately erupted with an incomparable purple gloss, just like suddenly forming a purple sun in the sky. This gave the feeling that all the world that came to his eyesight became covered with purple intent. No wonder he needed to come out to achieve his evolution. So this evolution of Haoyue's is actually so imposing? There's no way the undead creatures from this world wouldn't notice. Haoyue's tail was slowly sticking up. Being the nearest to him, Long Houchen could clearly hear the bones inside his body make ringing sounds. These cracking bones followed a precise rhythm, and as Long Houchen felt all his bones heat up, the purple intent on his forehead spread out a dazzling brilliance. Haoyue and him were closely linked through the blood pact. When such immense change happened in his body, he had an intense reaction. Perceiving the changes in Haoyue's body, Long Houchen also immediately understood why he would want to make this bizarre purple hexagon. To Haoyue, this should be an energy-absorbing formation. Having gained his 6th head, his energy was insufficient to complete the whole process of his evolution. He needed to absorb the sort of special energy from this world to complement his own and complete his process of evolution. As expected, under the illumination from that purple hexagon, minuscule starry purple particles appeared, immediately gathering toward the hexagonal formation. At the start, Long Houchen still found the scene blurred, but very rapidly, these purple particles accumulated, gathering from all sides. A shocking change followed. A large amount of purple electricity revolved around the 6 purple pillars, just like an immense coiling dragon taking shape around the purple hexagon. This fantastic energy was transmitted to Haoyue's body through the formation. The purple glint on Haoyue started to become increasingly more intense. His wide body didn't keep expanding, but the scales on him were evolving under a purple illumination. At the time of going through his 5th head's evolution, Haoyue's scales turned into a dark purple color. But this time, his scales evolved to a look close to amethyst. Every scale became fully rounded, gradually revealing 3 corners on the upper surface. Every single scale gave off a magnificent feeling. The horn from Haoyue's 6 immense heads spread out the glints characteristic of their own element. That newborn 6th head was shining in yellow color, looking a bit close to a cracked tomato. The inside seemed to emit a reddish-brown colored light. Earth element. Haoyue's 6th head was without a doubt of the earth element. The appearance of this head enabled Haoyue to have all the fundamental elements at his disposal. Water, fire, earth, and wind, together with light and poison. Long Haochen had suspicions that Haoyue's next head could maybe come out with the darkness element. That way, the 6 great elements would be all gathered. On one side, Long Haochen observed the changes on Haoyue's body, and on the other side, he spread his senses afar, to get a grasp on everything around. Han Yu also summoned his demonic eye, or rather, it should now be called a demonic eye commander. As the demonic eye grew in bulk, its ability also swelled. However, at the time he saw Haoyue, he couldn't help but withdraw to Han Yu's side. As he comforted him, he appeared quite gentle. This time, Haoyue's evolution didn't enlarge his body further, but seemed instead to make it shrink. His original mountain-shaped body gradually made an odd change, his form close to a lizard's turning closer to a form of dragon, with a less swollen look and much more dignified. Adding that to the purple crystal-like scales, he gave out an indescribable feeling of beauty. The purple color in the sky started to become more and more intense, but Long Haochen's look became more serious as it came. On the basis of Haoyue's sudden appearance, making such a big move, the undead creatures from this world should react only faster. But until now, they hadn't shown any trace of movement, as if they hadn't sensed his existence at all. This only made Long Haochen feel a greater pressure. Faintly, he seemed to sense an earth-shattering mighty aura gradually taking shape. But his mental force was unable to tell whether this pressure came from a real being and from whence it came. Time passed minute after minute, and the changes on Haoyue's body completed gradually. The immense purple hexagon in the sky still kept absorbing the purple-colored light in all directions to supplement it to his body. Haoyue's evolution caused Long Haochen to perceive a fantastic change. He felt the spiritual energy in his body rise, progressing at a slow speed, but as that awe-inspiring feeling came out of Haoyue's body, the same change happened on him. In particular, the purple-colored patterns on his forehead gained in brilliance, as his eyes turned into the exact same purple-golden color as Haoyue. Long Haochen discovered that the golden foundation armor, divine snail shield, an eternal melody he had on him, which all reached at least the epic tier, started to lightly shake as Haoyue's aura spread out from his body, as if acknowledging allegiance to him. The clearest feeling was from the divine snail shield. Slowly raising his left hand, he found out that even though he hadn't any spiritual highlandized energy stored, the divine snail shield unexpectedly spread out some multicolored light, the brilliance of a divine tool. Haoyue, Haoyue. You are actually such a formidable existence. Your evolution seems to be causing evolutions in my own body. Long Haochen understood that after this evolution from Haoyue completes, his own strength should rise to a whole new level. The advancement of his spiritual energy was secondary compared to the fantastic changes of his physique. In fact, from being originally a god's chosen one, the scion of light, his physique already surpassed by far ordinary people. If such a physique was still upgraded further, one might well imagine how formidable Haoyue's existence was. Long Haochen faintly sensed that Haoyue's original power was even a level above Kia's and his own constitutions as God's chosen ones. Of course, this was merely a guess. Long Haochen attempted to ask Haoyue before, but the latter remained silent every time, so he never got a reply. Long Haochen always saw Haoyue as a good brother, and thus never forced him to do anything. But even so, curiosity rose in his heart. He could accept any circumstances of Haoyue's, but curiosity couldn't be non-existent. Right at that time, Long Haochen felt what he had sensed coming through. Far away, the scene became deep purple-colored. At the start, Long Haochen still believed this to be that fantastic purple intent absorbed by Haoyue, but he rapidly found out that wasn't the case. That's because this atmosphere of purple was not merely a hint of light, rather, it resembled the dawn rising towards them. After the appearance of that purple light followed an overwhelming pressure. After it came, the world outside the range of the hexagonal formation released by Haoyue became tinted in deep purple. Even the magma inside the large cracks on the ground was no exception. Long Haochen let out a cold gasp. Just what level of strength was that? He faintly sensed that this enemy about to appear would be even more powerful than the greatest powerhouse he had encountered in the battlefield before, demon god of death Saminaga. And that's when the latter uses the power of his demon god pillar. An existence of this level ought to be the ruler of this world, right? Under great shock, Long Haochen calmed down contrary to expectations. He shouted full of seriousness, "Prepare the co-joined spiritual pills." "Yes." The others replied in chorus. Everyone was experienced and knowledgeable demon hunters. Since Long Houchen sensed the great power of the enemy, they could naturally sense it as well. Lin Xin handed a co-joined spiritual pill to Zhong Fangfang while the others each took out one. This was the last resort killing move of their 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad that they had yet to use after reaching the 6th step of cultivation. The improved co-joined boosting pills of Lin Xin were even more powerful than in the past. It not only provided them with the co-joined spiritual boost, but even amplified their total spiritual energy further while coming with less secondary effects. After all, the materials to make these later new batches of co-joined spiritual boosts were mainly gotten from fiend demons of the king grade, and naturally beyond comparison with what they had used before. The deep purple color grew in intensity, and a long indistinct sigh spread in the air. The massive oppressive force instantly reached its peak, and immediately, a figure made its way in the sky. Right, only one enemy came. She had a sweet build, floating in the air, looking like a human. Enveloped in a long cloak hiding even her head, she had a deep purple staff in her hand. That staff looked like a long bone, shining purple on its two ends. Long Houchen took a small stride forward, and the others gathered behind him. In the meantime, a golden light separated from his body. It was Yating, delivering the two divine swords into Houchen's hands. After that deep purple figure appeared, it didn't immediately launch an attack at them, but shifted its eyes to the hexagonal formation erected by Hao Yue. Slowly lifting her hand, she chanted in a very sweet-sounding voice, sounding feminine. But that language was totally unfamiliar to their group. "Take the pills and follow me." Long Houchen made a low shout, and was the first to take his co-joined spiritual pills, while instantly releasing the 4 sets of golden wings on his back. In a flash, his figure soared in midair. All the others took their own pills almost simultaneously, following Long Houchen into the air. Long Houchen, Kia, Lin Xin, Wang Yuan Yuan, Zhong Fangfang, and Han Yu, the 6 of them along with Yating soared high. The demonic eye was following at Han Yu's back, its tentacle wrapped around Han Yu's waist as if carried by him. Han Yu could sense that at the time this figure appeared from the sky, the demonic eye commander started to shiver violently. These were unstoppable shivers, arising from an intense fear that was spread continuously to Han Yu through their contract. She was definitely a powerhouse of the 9th step, and absolutely not an ordinary one. Han Yu was secretly astonished, but didn't warn Long Houchen. He could feel that Houchen naturally sensed that as well, that this battle will be an incredibly difficult one. His pair of heavy swords were pointed at the sides. Long Houchen made the others form a direct line in the sky, and everyone behind had their hands placed on the shoulders of the one in front. A massive spiritual energy started to pour inside Long Houchen's body. The aria of the goddess of light, and blue rain, hibiscus of light started to burst out with gaudy spiritual highland energy, shining conspicuously in orange and green. The others didn't find out, but outside of Long Houchen's pure light essence, an extra layer of a thin purple halo took form, making him look even more imposing. Very rapidly, Long Houchen arrived along with the others in front of the cloaked enemy, right between Hao Yue and her. Remaining silent, Long Houchen waved the swords in his hand. Crossing his swords to wield instant burst cross-cut, the most powerful offensive ability currently at his disposal. With the backing from his comrade's spiritual gathering boost, Long Houchen's spiritual energy rose to 100,000 in a few blinks of an eye. Adding that to the Golden Foundation armor's boost, the total of strength he could utilize already reached the highest peak it had ever reached in his life. And furthermore, Houchen found out that no matter how spiritual energy kept pouring in him, he didn't give off signs of overload. What's more, 2 faintly forming spiritual cavities on him actually completed their transformation at that instant. In other words, Long Houchen had now opened a total of 7 spiritual cavities. Opening spiritual cavities was, to any practitioner, an extremely challenging yet important matter. The opening of these 2 spiritual cavities immediately gave him a feeling of sublimation. The epic tear lusters blooming from the 2 divine swords condensed in the air, and a dark blue light ray immediately flew straight at the cloaked enemy. Having gone through these 2 years of tempering, the 4 demon hunters really could, after joining hands, match the power of a demon god below the top 36. Ding! A resonant buzzing sound came out in midair from that enemy's left hand, which was extended from her gown. That was a slender, slim, woman's hand, describable as sparkling like white jade. In fact, this was the most beautiful hand Long Houchen's group had ever encountered. But that hand like white jade was really extremely pale, as if extremely unhealthy, which went so far as to give off a feeling of terror. The tip of the forefinger of precisely that hand softly pointed toward that attack, the instant blast crosscut which was able to match the full power attack from a divine tool. Relying on that skill, Long Houchen formally managed to kill the Goblin Knight Seer as well as demon god of clear vision Crowcell. But at this very moment, such a powerful blow was stopped by that jade-like finger. A dark blue glint spread from her finger, and her sweet figure trembled slightly, as her incanting voice stopped. Although Long Houchen's strike didn't inflict any damage on her, her incantation was interrupted. So you, creatures from another world, came back again. That cold voice spread to the minds of Long Houchen and the others without physical communication. But from that, the group could clearly sense the intention from the enemy. Long Houchen's shock was extremely intense. Although the enemy's incantaton was stopped, she only used a single finger to block his strongest attack. Relying on the two divine swords of epic tier plus his pure spiritual energy and light essence of that moment, all he could actually do was to interrupt the enemy's incantation. What absurd strength! You have Austin Griffin's aura in your body. No wonder you could interrupt my incantaton. Looks like you welcomed him in your other realm. How courageous of you. Then I'll kill you first before disposing of him. The cold voice was full of rage, giving off a strange feeling of adorableness. If Long Houchen had remained just a bit longer at the time Haoyue's third head came out, he would recognize that cloaked enemy to be one of the most powerful rulers of this world, the Lich King. Pointing a bone staff in her hand toward Houchen, a small pink blister came out and aimed straight at him. In the meantime, the dark purple brilliance on the sky behind the Lich King became even more intense, enveloping the group of 6 inside in an instant. An immense oppressive force came overwhelmingly, and a fierce darkness essence immediately aimed straight at Long Houchen's group, filled with a deadly pressure. This place being after all another realm from Long Houchen's, he was not even able to borrow the power of the goddess of light. But as the god's chosen one he had already produced countless miracles. The sword in his hands recovered abruptly. Long Houchen made a long hissing sound as golden flames rushed out from his body instantly, covering the whole sky in golden yellow like the sun. An incomparable holy aura blossomed from Houchen's body, making the deep purple radiance unable to invade into this golden area regardless of its intensity. Sacred holy light is the greatest nemesis for undead spiritual energy. Although Long Houchen didn't have a source for holy spiritual energy, this also means that holy light is precious and extraordinary in this world. Regardless of the Lich King's strength, she was in the end an undead. In front of such pure light essence, she suffered quite a loss. Her powerful domain was actually unable to deal with Long Houchen. At that very moment, that purple carbonated blister already struck in front of Long Houchen. Facing this fantastic and powerful blister, Long Houchen didn't dare show any carelessness. Multicolored golden light spread out abruptly, forming a radiance expanding over a large range, with his body at the center. Guardian Knight ability, Shield Wall. A series of bizarre sounds resounded on the divine snail shield of sun and moon, and at a distance from it, Long Houchen could shockingly see the corroding effects of that terrifying purple blister. But just as the Lich King's domain was restricted by Long Houchen, the shield transformed from the starlight divine beast had an extreme resistance against any death and darkness magic. That purple blister didn't have a very great force of impact, but its powerful darkness element corroding effect silently withered away in front of the divine snail shield. Having managed to block the enemy's attack, Long Houchen took a small breath of relaxation. This Lich King was certainly very strong, but seemed to be suppressed in the elemental aspect. Furthermore, due to the use of the spiritual co-joined pills, Long Houchen's current cultivation reached an astonishing level. His mates were all powerhouses of the 7th step exceeding 100,000 spiritual energy. Put together, the 5 of them exceeded a total of 600,000, and adding that to his own spiritual energy, even without golden foundation armor, that made a powerhouse of the 9th step. With the supply provided by his armor, his total spiritual energy was already over 150,000. Add to that his entire set of equipment at least at the epic tier, and the Lich King wouldn't have an easy time to kill him. With a cold snort, the Lich King once again made that strange incantation from before, causing purple blisters to be unceasingly emitted from her staff. Some were big and some small, and as they flew past Long Houchen, pitch-black twisted marks were left. On the trajectory of their flight, space was unexpectedly shredded, and this was done solely with the corrosive power of the blisters. That's just how terrifying they were. Long Houchen's eyes were glinting golden, parrying the enemy's attack through the divine snail shield of sun and moon. But those blisters consumed his spiritual energy at a considerable speed. At this rate, he won't last for very long. Yating. Long Houchen shouted loudly. Yating and him were mentally interconnected. His most powerful spiritual stove, which absorbed a great amount of energies from her fusion with the Saint's spiritual stove, evolved to such an extent that Long Houchen had never heard of such a thing before. The Lich King's unfathomable strength reached an estimate of at least 300,000. And furthermore, in this realm, her strength was bound to be greatly amplified. Yet Long Houchen didn't know how much longer Hao Yue needed to remain. At this rate, they would only be able to wait for death, so he had to think of a way to contend with the enemy. Yating kept herself flying alongside Long Houchen all the time. Hearing his call, she lifted up her golden staff. Then one could see a golden flash of light shoot out from the staff, aiming straight at the Lich King. At the same time as this shooting light, a small furnace appeared faintly in front of Yating. The Lich King once again extended her left hand, pointing it at this shooting light. Speaking of a strange thing, the flash of light in question wasn't affected by the pointing finger. As it landed on the Lich King, one could see clearly that light tightening up around the Lich King's waist, pulling her toward Long Houchen's direction. What's that? Let alone the Lich King, even Long Houchen's group didn't know what ability Yating was using. Actually disregarding the enemy's defense to pull her in directly, even someone with the Lich King's degree of power didn't manage to resist it. This success greatly overjoyed Long Houchen. An intense multicolored light abruptly burst out from the divine snail shield, smashing the purple blisters one after another, and the aria of the goddess of light reappeared in his right hand. Instantly, Long Houchen made himself one with the divine sword. A sharp sword intent surrounded his body, as the surroundings looked completely distorted. A sharp ringing sound pierced through the skies, as a glistening orange brilliance was shot at the Lich King. As it turns out, in the short time he crossed hands with the Lich King, Long Houchen came to understand that this enemy was similar to a human mage manipulating departed spirits. Her magic was really powerful, the most powerful that Long Houchen had seen in his life. Even when relying on his divine snail shield of sun and moon and a spiritual energy exceeding the count of 150,000, resisting that was very difficult. However, her magic being so strong, a physical ability would naturally not be too great. A direct attack on her body would probably be decisive. The golden light shot from Yating's staff was a powerful ability born from the new evolution of the Saint's spiritual stove. After absorbing the gem left by the demon god of clear vision, a change appeared in the Saint's spiritual stove. Although it didn't increase the range of the Saint's spiritual stove, and didn't gain an ability like clear vision's godly pull as Long Houchen imagined, it gained an extremely special annex ability, of the same category as the Saint's spiritual stove. As a matter of course, it completely became part of Yating, because the Saint's spiritual stove originally became part of her. This ability is called Absolute Foundation. Absolute Foundation only applies on the Saint's spiritual stove's pull ability, and as long as Yating activates it, no matter how powerful the enemy is, this enemy will still be pulled to some extent and arrive in front of Long Houchen. This ability has a range of 100 meters, which is to say that upon entering within 100 meters range from Yating, the target can be pulled unconditionally. This ability of Absolute Foundation is still far weaker than Clear Vision's Godly Pull, but don't forget that Clear Vision's Godly Pull won't necessarily succeed, and has a lot of limitations. Although this ability of pull is limited in terms of range, it is now even comparable to a divine artifact within a range of 100 meters. Of course, the premise is that Long Houchen can definitely win against the opponent. And furthermore, this ability gained after evolving can be activated only up to 3 times a day. The Lich King coldly spread to Long Houchen's mind the thought, wishful thinking. Did Long Houchen's divine sword strike reach out? It did reach out, however, it only struck an expanse of deep purple fog. At the time the Lich King arrived in front of Long Houchen, the pull ability of the Saint's spiritual stove lost effectiveness, therefore the last blow filled with sword intent didn't have effects either. The Lich King unexpectedly turned into fog and let the aria of the goddess of light pass through. Fog transformation? No, this enemy is actually a spectre-like existence. Long Houchen was greatly startled, and almost unconsciously made an instant reaction. A strong multicolored golden light was abruptly shot from the divine snail shield, to land onto the fog issued from the Lich King. Immediately, a mournful scream was heard. The purplish-black fog streaked over 1,000 meters away at rapid speed, before retransforming into the Lich King's looks. But her body was clearly unstable, floating in the sky, visibly wounded. As a divine tool transformed from a starlight divine beast, the shield held the purest light attribute. Indeed, without a physical body, the Lich King is immune to any physical attack, but the illumination of holy light can wound her. But it requires it to reach a sufficient level of power, of course. And the divine snail shield had such an ability. An intense multicolored golden light traveled through the sky, as Long Houchen finally loosened his breath. Having finally wounded the enemy, He didn't chase further. The most important thing was to protect Haoyue. Looks like I was really underestimating you. The Lich King's voice was even colder, and this coldness contained an extreme rage. She was far from using her full power to handle Long Haochen, because of sensing the huge gap separating the enemies and herself. She wanted to keep the most power possible to deal with Haoyue. There's no way Austin Griffin would be so easy to destroy. Having already grown his sixth head, even an existence such as the Lich King didn't have an absolute certainty in front of him. But she didn't expect Long Haochen to actually be so hard to cope with. Being blessed with a spiritual energy of extreme purity and a divine tool such as the divine snail shield, he really managed to hold up the Lich King. At the current time, Haoyue's purple hexagon started to darken in the sky, his body becoming glittering. One could see his current self to be closer to a giant dragon instead of a lizard. The 6 heads looked much closer to dragon heads as well, and he had gained wings similar to a dragon's. His aura also became much more dignified. This evolution was about to complete before long. Even a powerhouse whose cultivation reaches such a degree as the Lich King had a great answer toward Haoyue, and couldn't help but feel nervous due to that. Having previously experienced the overwhelming battle from that time, she understood the terrifying nature of Austin Griffin the best. They couldn't let him escape once again after evolving successfully. Otherwise, there's no way to know whether they'll be able to take care of him the next time. Reaching this point of thought, the Lich King let out a screech after looking up, and, immediately, countless balls of light of over 1 meter diameter each appeared, just like a purple rain of meteors, shooting towards the direction of Long Haochen's group, including Haoyue and his purple hexagon. The Lich King pointed her staff forward as she chanted continuous raging incantations. In the sky started to appear series of cracks, while a black fog rose all around her. One could see that after that ascension of purplish black fog, the aura coming out from the Lich King became extremely weak. She was indeed wounded by the previous burst of multicolor golden light, having looked down too much on Long Haochen, underrating this god's chosen one. At this very moment, the Lich King came out with her true full strength. Long Haochen didn't dare show carelessness. Flying backwards with his comrades at great speed, he got right before Haoyue. Being a single individual, he couldn't attend to caring for the purple hexagon in the sky, and could only focus on defending Haoyue. The multicolor golden light once again blossomed, a shield wall reconstructed. In the meantime, Long Haochen chanted an incantation alongside Yating. It was for light reflection. He didn't know what degree of power the next attack of the Lich King would reach, so preparing a light prayers was no mistake. That series of purple lumps was far more powerful than the blisters that came before. Not only were they extremely corrosive, they also came with terrifying impact force. While consecutively resisting a few dozen thanks to the defensive power of his divine snail shield, he still continuously drew back along with the others, as the effects of the conjoined spiritual boost massively went down. At that rate, the cast for light prayers wouldn't be completed. Right at that time, a purple glow was shot from the hexagon in the sky, landing right on Haochen. That instant, he felt the blood in his whole body surge out, as an indescribable force abruptly burst out. This force was unrelated to his internal spiritual energy, turning his whole skin into a purplish gold color. His retreating steps suddenly made a stop, as he forcibly maintained shield wall in front of him. This mystical force felt like external spiritual energy reaching its highest peak state. A bizarre purplish golden light also emanated from the divine snail shield, as if providing a new defensive layer to this divine tool-ranked shield. The purplish lumps projected by the Lich King at the 6-pointed star surprisingly didn't have any effect. It only caused it to release surges of purple intent, dissolving the projectiles one after another. But right at that time, ear-splitting bellows reverberated in the air. In cracks formed by that Lich King, massive figures appeared one after another. Bone dragons. Formed of pale bones, and with dark purple flames pulsing in their eyes, the bone dragons kept coming out from the cracks, aiming straight at Haochen and Haoyue. There were no less than 100 of them. And all reached the peak as undead creatures. An ordinary bone dragon could contend with a gigantic dragon. There's a certain gap, but each bone dragon is an undead powerhouse at the peak of the 8th step. They are blessed with great spiritual force and physical ability. Perhaps the myriad abruptly appearing bone dragons could only be contended against by the demon god emperor's devil dragon legions. Long Haochen and the others couldn't help but change complexion. Yet an even more terrifying scene followed. The purplish-black domain of the Lich King encompassed the area around these bone dragons, turning their bones purplish-black as well. Previously at the peak of the 8th step, they finally all broke through the 9th step. For a moment, the whole sky was blocked off from sight, and all aimed at Long Haochen's group. Even after having completed this terrifying summons, the Lich King still kept reciting incantations. She flew once again high in the sky, aiming her staff at Haoyue's hexagonal structure. It looks as if her terrifying and powerful bone dragons were only aimed at stopping Long Haochen's crew from interrupting her incantation. This instant, Long Haochen operated his thoughts at lightning speed, coming to a decision in a flash. To the astonished looks of the others, he took the initiative to terminate the conjoined spiritual boost, and returned at lightning speed, immediately making contact 5 times with his palm. His palm, carrying every time a golden flash, transported Caio, Wang Yuan, Lin Xin, Zhong Fang, and Han Yu as well as his demonic eye commander back to the Tower of Eternity. That instant, the bone dragons were already throwing themselves at them. But strangely, Long Houchen stopped to focus on Haoyu's defense and abruptly spread out his 4 wings, bursting out with resplendent light. Lightning flash. He was flying up to the bone dragons and sticking close to the 6 purple pillars of light at Haoyu's side. With lightning flash's degree of speed, it took only a flash for him to reach the skies, facing off against the bone dragons at high altitude. Having lost the boost from the conjoined spiritual pills, the current Long Houchen suffered a great loss of strength, leaving the 9th step. But the dexterity of his flight reached the highest level. One could see clearly that he performed extreme acrobatics in midair, sparing no cost of spiritual energy to put lightning flash to full use, and aimed at the small gaps between the bone dragons to break through forcefully. After all, having just been summoned, these bone dragons were still a bit sluggish. Facing his approach, the nearest ones to him immediately launched attacks, but the overwhelming majority was dodged. Only the poor strike of one bone dragon managed to land on the divine snail shield. Although the bone dragons managed to reach the 9th step's threshold thanks to the Lich King's domain, the combination of Long Houchen and his divine snail shield at the divine tool rank was in no way so easy to split. Moreover, after gaining that layer of purple gold, Long Houchen's external spiritual energy extraordinarily managed to immediately push away that bone dragon as his figure flashed away once again, even higher in the sky. Another flash of golden light occurred, gaudily heading toward the Lich King. Pull! The instant Long Houchen had used lightning flash, Gating also attached herself to his body from behind. After his series of consecutive leaps, they managed to arrive within 100 meters of the Lich King. The orange-lusted Arya of the Goddess of Light carried his sword intent at the realm of sword and body making 1 foot, while the divine snail shield also released its strongest multicolor golden light. Now Long Houchen's eyes were glistening, incomparably steady and calm. Facing the bone dragon was extremely frightful, but the most terrible was the Lich King, yet it was vital to interrupt this very same Lich King's incantation. Haoyu's state of evolution prevented them from communicating, but Long Houchen could sense the mental changes on him. At the time these bone dragons appeared, Haoyu didn't show the slightest mental fluctuation, but when that Lich King began again to chant in front of the hexagonal body, Haoyu's mental fluctuations became extremely violent. Weighing the threats, Long Houchen immediately made the accurate judgment to transport the others back, for the sake of their safety. Once again pulled in front of Long Houchen, the Lich King issued another indignant shriek. She absolutely didn't expect Long Houchen to make such a judgment nor to show the ability to break free from the bone dragon's encirclement. At that very moment, at least 4 bone dragons were following Long Houchen's back and launching their attacks. But the incantation of the Lich King was still stopped. _bang. A strong purplish-black radiance surrounded Long Houchen's body in a blast, scattering his sword intent forcibly. The terrifying blast caused Long Houchen to expel a mouthful of blood, but he completed shield wall at the same time to carry out his defense. The divine snail shield glinting in multicolor radiance was just so sturdy. That instant, it resisted not only the magic bombardment from the Lich King, but also the 4 consecutive strikes from the bone dragons. Relying on the layer of purple gold on his body as well as the powerful defensive force from his shield, Long Houchen managed that much. But he was now in desperate straits. Surrounded by 4 bone dragons while facing the incomparably formidable undead magic of the Lich King, he was left with no way out. This instant, an ear-splitting roar was heard below. A mind-blowing scene followed. The over 100 bone dragons were all stunned hearing it. And the same went even for the Lich King. Then, that massive purple hexagonal formation in the sky blew up, spreading out a massive purple brilliance all around, encompassing the whole battlefield. The flames in the eyes of every single bone dragon trembled violently, giving off the feeling that they could go extinct at any time. Cowering with their whole bodies as if their lives depended on it, they tried to guard their soul fires with their whole power. Let alone attack, they were already facing an extreme struggle just to keep themselves alive. In a flash of purplish golden, Houchen disappeared from this area, reappearing instead on Haoyu's back. The latter had just achieved his evolution. His roar was simultaneously coming from the 6 heads, including the newly born little yellow with a tomato-shaped horn. The might from the 6 great heads radiated all around. After evolving, Haoyu was now comparable to a human powerhouse of the 8th step in bearing, but the purple intent spreading out from his body was simply sensed as terrifying from the viewpoint of the bone dragons and even the Lich King. 6 cold gazes gathered onto the Lich King. As she once again let out a shriek, her mantle turned into mist, revealing the body behind it. She had a perfect human build, a totally naked body, but had a skull for a head. Frantically waving her bone staff, she aimed strong black radiances at Haoyue. Grower. Once again roaring high, a large amount of purple intent undulated once again. The attacks of the Lich King were immediately nullified in front of that purple intent, and Haoyue's massive wings carried Long Haochen alongside him, scattering and smashing a bone dragon trying its utmost to preserve its soul fire along the way. The next instant, he disappeared beside Long Haochen in the dark night sky. No! The Lich King bellowed. Her wrath caused all the bone knights to shiver. But she still ended up defeated, and was only able to stare blankly at the process of Haoyue's evolution, as he gained a sixth head. Her defeat was unrelated to her strength. Facing the purple intent released by Haoyue, she couldn't even display half her strength. In the end, her summoned legion of bone dragons used up their strength resisting the fear, and barely had the ability to continue the attack. Otherwise, how could Long Haochen's group contend against such a formidable undead sovereign? Even in this world of Haoyue's, the Lich King was amongst the top ranked in terms of cultivation. After suffering an extreme wrath came an ice coldness. An unspeakable chill spread through the Lich King. She could not describe her thoughts right now, but felt that she vaguely sensed the extremely terrifying Austin Griffin of that time seemed to have come back. Just before Haoyue and Long Haochen departed, the instant his 6 pairs of eyes gazed at her, they left a deep feeling in her memories, and aroused a fear coming from the depths of her soul, going to the extent of directly causing her whole cloak to burn. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.